We live in a time of using external value, external merit to validate ourselves, to validate our worth, right? You know, what we've accomplished, our accolades, what we have, who we are connected to, all of those external things. We tend to live in a world, live in a society, live in a culture that validates us based on our externals, right? The people in our lives, our connections, our material wealth, our accolades. All of those things are now being used to validate somebody's sense of self. And that could be a big problem. In fact, it is a big problem. Before I get into that, let me briefly introduce myself. Hello, my name is Marissa Senya, and I am a freedom coach. I help women who are feeling stuck or trapped in unhealthy relationship dynamics by providing strategic guidance and resources so they have the clarity, confidence, and support that they need to make a peaceful exit from relationship dynamics that no longer serve them. And today I want to talk about the concept of moving on as an act of self-love. But before we get into the self-love part, I started off by talking about the ways that we have come to esteem value in ourselves based on our culture, based on just the messaging that we get from society at large, regardless of what part of the world that you're watching this from. It's there. We live in a global world and we are more connected than ever thanks to social media and the barrage of information at our fingertips. Obviously, there are benefits to that, which I am obviously taking advantage of now, but I would be remiss if we don't also discuss, the harms in that, the constant ability to compare yourself to somebody else, right? Compare your bad day to somebody else's Instagram highlight reel of their perfect life. So when we talk about the act of moving on with our lives, moving on from toxic, harmful relationship dynamics, self-love is a really, really important part of that. But how do we get there? How do we get there when we live in a culture, when we live in a society at large that places so much value on what we have and our proximity, and all the boxes that we've been able to meticulously check in our lives? How do we get to that place of validating ourselves when all this while we've been just listening to so much programming about the external things that we need, especially as women, in order to feel valued? Okay, and what do I mean by that? Well, accomplish the educational goals, accomplish the family goals, that you should have this type of person, what it looks like, accomplish the material goals, the properties that we should have acquired together, the vehicles that we have, where we are able to go on vacations together, all of the things. Those are externals, right? But this act of your self-worth, that is something that comes from within. And it is really difficult to distill the noise, especially as women, to figure that out, to find out where that worth is. So let's get to a definition of things. So according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, self-worth is defined as a feeling that you are a good person who deserves to be treated with respect. I'll repeat that again. Self-worth is defined, according to Merriam-Webster, as a feeling that you are a good person who deserves to be treated with respect. Okay, so it's not about what you have earned. It is not about all of your accolades and accomplishments. It is intrinsic. It is this value of, I am a good person and I deserve respect. And if I am in a situation where I am not being respected consistently by somebody I've made a commitment to, by somebody that I'm in a partnership with, by somebody that I have married, I need to take a look at my own value, right? And how I see myself. Because at some point, it's no longer about the other person. It becomes about you and your own journey, okay? And so, this concept of self-value, according to positive psychology, they define it as it's more behavioral than emotional, more about how you act toward what you value, including yourself. How do you feel about yourself in comparison to others? And there is where it all comes to bear, right? It all comes to a head. So when we are talking about this act of self-love, how do we even get there if we don't perceive our value, right? If we don't know our own worth, if we are looking for our value or our sense of esteem to come from others, we're already on a dangerous path. If we're looking for it to come from accomplishments and accolades and proximity to power, and being able to check off some external list of accomplishments, we're in really big trouble, because a lot of the times those accomplishments do not translate into us feeling empowered and affirmed in who we are as individuals. Or, even worse, the minute that those accomplishments or those lists, those external lists, right, of perceived good things that you should be able to check off are threatened, then suddenly our worth, which we've tied to those external things, is also crushed. I remember this during the 2008, 2009, financial crash that happened. I was from the U.S. perspective, because that's where I was when that happened. I remember just seeing a lot of news stories about CEOs of companies that suddenly committed suicide because of not having the income that they wanted to have, not having the security that they had built their lives on. Suddenly, family structures were falling apart because, there had been this tie, this dependency on these external accomplishments to translate to, intrinsic value. And the reality is, intrinsic means that it should be within, and it shouldn't come from something that you've accomplished, because at any point it can be taken away. And so when it comes to relationships, when it comes to saying it's time for me to move on with my life, to move away from a situation that has consistently been harmful, that has consistently torn me down, and instead of building me up, it's consistently brought out the worst in me instead of the best in me. It's consistently brought fear and trepidation instead of joy and hope and a sense of renewal. All of the things, right? When it's time to confront that reality, it comes back to our sense of self-worth. And so when we finally say enough is enough, it's time to choose me. It's time to prioritize my needs. It's time to say yes to me and stop suppressing, my values in order to have what may look good on the outside, but yet suffer on the inside. Enough is enough. And so when we choose to move on, when we make a powerful choice to move on, especially as women, We're choosing ourselves loud and clear. And we're saying yes to being loved well, first and foremost, by yourself, right? And it doesn't come from somebody else. Somebody else can't give you what you are not able to give yourself. So when it comes to this self-love, nobody can love you more than you love yourself. You have to be able to be like, man, gosh, I got it going on. I am the best thing since sliced bread. Do you see me right now? And so much more. You got to be your own hype woman, okay? And then, of course, in time, you know, others will come to see your worth and your glow. But first and foremost, you have to see it in yourself. All right? So when you move on, when you choose to move on, see it as a powerful act of choosing you. See it as a powerful act of self-determination. See it as a powerful act of self-love. All right, I will end there. If any of this content resonated with you, please be sure to like and subscribe to this channel and share this with a woman of any age that you think would benefit from this material. Until next time, keep well.